Hello, everyone, and welcome to Travel Flow Radio. I'm your host, Syndigo, and here we share wild and inspiring travel stories that give you the motivation and insights to go see what this big world has to offer for yourself. So, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy today's episode. Thank you guys so much for your support for my first episode. I really appreciated it if you listened. Today's episode is a little bit different than the first. I have a guest speaker on the podcast today, and this was actually the very first episode or the very first recording that I ever did for the podcast. Like at this point, the podcast didn't even have a name. But I knew I needed to get my friend Maddie's story, and this was back in July when we recorded this podcast. So just keep in mind, this is my very first recording, but it's a really exciting story on Maddie's 6 months that she spent alone in India. So it's going to be really interesting, and I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you for listening. Trust, a huge part of our human experience. Trusting yourself to get you where you need to go while also keeping yourself safe. Trusting that you're stronger than your struggles, and the trust that you're simply capable and worthy. Putting trust into the universe to send the right people to you in a time of need. Trusting that the chaotic moments in life are just as sacred and important as the serenity that other moments are filled with. Leaning into all moments of your journey to thrive with a present state of being. Trusting in divine timing and finding humor in the mishaps of life. Trust is a huge part of traveling and it's experiencing the world that can create magical connections and coincidences. But what happens when that same trusting mindset betrays you and you are left taken advantage of and lost in a world of strangers? How do you pick yourself up again and learn to trust? Putting yourself out there just isn't the same. But these experiences test and build our intuition to help us find out which parts of our psyche to listen to and which are merely just fear and anxiety speaking. They build our resilience and show how strong it is to be a human. So a little reminder from the world that we are stronger than what we are going through. And on this episode of Travel Flow Radio, today we talk about leaning into the chaos, trusting in yourself, and knowing when to staunch the fuck up. We are recording today from Ecuador, a beautiful little sleepy surf town called Ayampe on the Ecuadorian coast. I am here with my dear friends Maddy. We met in the mountainous areas, La Sierra of Ecuador in the Andes Mountains. When I met her the first night, I realized I wanted to interview her for my podcast. So today we're going to find out just what makes this woman such a bad bitch. So Oi. Hello Maddy, welcome. Hey. How are you?
I'm terrific, mate. I'm very good. How are you going?
I'm doing great. We're here, we got a beautiful view of the beach, we're having some vegan donuts, and we're excited to get this podcast started. So today we're talking about Maddy and her trip to India, where she spent 6 months traveling by herself. So we'll just give Maddy some space to talk about herself, how long she's been traveling like this, and yeah, why she decided to go to India and anything that prepared her for the experience.
Yeah, so, well, firstly, thank you for having me.
Yes,
it's an honor.
Thank you for being here.
I really appreciate it. And yeah, so I'm 28. I'm originally from Melbourne, Australia. And I've been traveling on and off since I was 22. So I first left and I did a bit of a drunk tourist through Asia and Europe. But that is when I realized that I wanted to make this my life's mission, really. And then I went back to Australia for a year, and then I left again, but with a bit more purpose this time. And I went back to Southeast Asia, and I frolicked around there for maybe 4 months before heading to India, where I spent 6 months. 3 months in the north, then 1 month in Nepal, and then 3 months back in India in the south. Mm-hmm. And then I moved to Vietnam for a year and a half, Portugal for 5 months, then back to Australia for a year, and now I'm back traveling, backpacking, doing what I got to do
Here in South America.
here in South America.
And how long have you been traveling, and how long are you planning on traveling on this trip in
on
South
this
America?
trip, it's been 6 months to the day, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What a great anniversary.
I know. It actually really is.
What a
I'm
great
having
day.
a great day.
Yeah.
So it's been 6 months to the day. I started in Mexico, 6 weeks in Mexico with a good friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And then Colombia for 3 months. And now I've been in Ecuador for 2.5, I guess. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Or a month and a half.
And we're riding it out for a lot longer?
Yeah, hopefully at least until April next year.
Okay.
If not longer, to be honest with you. We'll see what comes up. I used to teach English in Vietnam, so I've sort of kept that in my back pocket if something appears.
Always,
And
yeah.
there's always little ways, you know. Part of the thing I love about traveling is like you meet people who are doing life in such an interesting way and making money in so many different ways. It doesn't necessarily...
Very inspiring.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be this like 9 to 5. Like for some people, yes, like that's what it is or that's what it has to be, but not necessarily for everybody. Yeah.
Beautiful. We love that. So, did you kind of stumble upon India, or why did you choose to go to India?
I was ready for a challenge, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I'd heard so much about it. I was with a good friend of mine in Borneo, in Malaysia,
Yes.
in the Malaysian part of Borneo. And he'd been to India before, and I said, oh, I don't know, it's calling me, you know, like I think it's time to go. And I was nervous.
Of course.
More nervous than I'd been for other places. For me, I don't know, once you've sort of backpacked a little bit solo, you sort of are like, oh yeah, here we go. But this just felt like another step up, and I just felt ready for it, but also really anxious about it. I flew into Delhi from Malaysia, and then just sort of...
How was that experience?
It's a big airport, like, it was fine. I mean, the first person I spoke to was a man, of course, and he was checking my passport. He had to stamp my passport, and he was like asking me if I had WhatsApp or Facebook, and I'm like, do I have to lie to this? I don't want to give this man my Facebook, but I think it was fine. But
You gave it to him?
No, I can't even remember, to be honest with you. I think I did because I was like, let me into the country.
Yeah, right. Just being as nice as you possibly can.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, my fate is in this man's hands. But
Yeah.
no, it was fine. Like, I don't know. You just hear so many stories about India, like constantly. Everyone says the same thing, and having been there now, I see why. It really is like a love or hate situation. It is chaotic. It is crazy. But then if you can find the flow in that, then you're winning. Like, then it's, for me, it's obviously, I'm talking about it because I loved it. So, it ended up being my favorite country that I've been to so far, and like one of my favorite periods of my life.
Because of the challenge? Is that what made it your favorite?
I think rising above that challenge, and I don't know, I've just never experienced joy like that from myself, you know? I was really on one. Like, there's just this energy there that if you can embrace and integrate yourself within, then you're a part of it, and you are, I don't know, it's contagious. I just found it incredibly contagious, and for me, I liked it, you know? I liked the chaos, and I enjoyed the stimulus. It's a lot of stimulus.
I bet.
It is.
Yes, overload, I can imagine. And did you ever have a moment in your first couple, maybe weeks there, maybe it hit you immediately, where you had a moment where you're like, I'm in India, like this is actually happening?
I mean, it happened, I would say it was like while I was in Delhi. That's the thing. India tried to kill me 100% in the first few weeks. Like, in the first month and a bit, I had a pretty rough time. But it's the culture shock for me. Obviously, it's different for everyone, but for me was just like the amount of people everywhere. That's the thing. Like, I've spent maybe 2 years of my life in Southeast Asia and Asia in general. and I love it. Like, that's really where I feel my best self.
Mm-hmm.
And it's partly because of the chaos of a lot of the places. Not everywhere, of course. You find peace, you can find serenity, but when you're in a city in Asia and India, there's
loads of
fucking people everywhere. Like, and it's the beeping of the horns. Like, I've never seen traffic like that in my life. Everyone is trying to get everywhere as fast as humanly possible.
Can't imagine.
It's insane, and it's like the smells, the colors, like it's just so every house is painted a different color.
Overload.
Yeah, you know, I'm a pretty sensitive person. I'm a very sensitive person, and so, you know, not every day I was like smiling and loving it. You know, like sometimes I was like, "Ooh, that's too much," and I would have to retreat. I went straight to the mountains, really.
You got out of the city.
Yeah,
pretty much immediately.
So for me, this worked out well. Usually I arrive and I don't have a plan. That's how I usually like to do things. But for India, it kind of felt like I would feel more comfortable if I had something organized.
Mm-hmm.
So I teed up a workaway up in Dharamshala, which is in Himachal Pradesh.
Okay.
I took a bus from Delhi, just a night bus.
How long was that?
That was 10 hours, I think.
10 hours into the mountains.
Yeah. And the thing with India is there's different buses you can take. You can take the public bus, and then you can take another step up from that, which is a bit more comfortable. You can take another step up from that, which is a bit more comfortable, obviously increasing in price. So you can ease your way in. You could do it however you want the whole time. Like,
that's good to know.
Yeah, the first bus I took was like a more fancy one. My friend who had been to India before told me to go befriend her mate, who was this Indian guy who was a travel agent, and he organized the bus for me. We hung out for a couple of days, and he was like, he got me on this fancy bus, and I was like, ugh, I don't want the fancy bus. And he was like, ease up, all right? It's your first few days. Take the fancy bus.
And you took the fancy bus.
Well, I didn't even realize that's what I'd paid for at that point. But yeah, I think I took 2 fancy buses in my 6 months there, and that was one of them. Yeah.
Was there much of a difference?
Yeah.
Yeah, big difference.
Yeah. But I personally, personal preference, I love the public one. It's just, I don't know, for me it was an adventure.
It's more raw.
Yeah, you're living it. That's the thing.
You're in there. Long-term travel is meant to experience how people actually live instead of just going and taking the easy route of, you know, retreats that are all-inclusive and you go for 2 weeks, you know.
Exactly. That's not my style. Like, my friend who I traveled with in Mexico, we actually laughed because I was like, where are the cheap buses that take hours longer? And he was like, why would you want that? I'm like, because I think we realized that I actually enjoy being uncomfortable. Like, I feel I'm a bit more alive, you know?
Exactly.
But yeah, for me, I really enjoyed taking just like the normal bus everywhere, because it was, sometimes they would break down, and obviously that's not fun, but it's just part of the adventure.
Part of the adventure, for sure.
And they play really loud music. Like, you can't put your headphones in. Like, don't.
Wow.
You can't. It's like really loud Bollywood and Punjabi music. Like, loud, you know? But it gives you, and you're looking out the window at all the stimulus that I've just been describing, like people everywhere, mountains, a lot of rubbish, like a lot of trash, unfortunately, like an obscene amount, to be honest with you. But just people and colors and everything everywhere, and you're listening to the music and you're smelling the smells.
It's almost like you're forced to be.
You are present. Yeah, like you are there.
Forced to be present.
Exactly, which I loved, you know. And I did have one bus that was really funny, like a public one. I was going from Gagnani in. Oh, actually, I might want to gatekeep that one. But I was going from a place in Uttarakhand. I was going from Uttarakhand, the top of Uttarakhand, all the way to Pokhara in Nepal. It took 48 hours and 3 buses. The last bus was a fancy bus in Nepal because I didn't know what I was doing. And that was actually the worst one somehow.
Oh, really?
But I was just done by this point.
Yeah.
But on the first one, it's going down all these windy mountains, and this woman leans over me to throw up out the window. Like, I was like, oh no! Like, but to be honest, like, of course I feel for her, but there was vomit on the sides of all of these buses, because the mountains are just insane. Like,
And the road.
The roads are crazy.
I'm sure the drivers are just whipping
They're
it.
insane.
They've been doing that for a long time.
Honestly, I think there should be like a game, like a console game called Indian Bus Driver, and all you do is just try to like beat the Indian bus drivers to get somewhere, or like to just traverse on these mountains, or I don't know, man. That has probably been for me where I'm like, ooh, I could die today, like, but I didn't. So yeah. There is a flow to India, like there is a rhythm and a pace that they all seem to understand, but I mean, there's like 1.3 billion people there, and they're all trying to get to where they're trying to be as fast as humanly possible. Like I said, I used to live in Vietnam, and I saw a lot of accidents there as well, because again, there's so many people, and everyone's on a motorbike there, but people drove slower there.
In Vietnam?
Yeah, in Vietnam, but in India, they're so fast, it's crazy, like, but yeah, you just gotta pray to whatever God you've got and get on the bus, like.
Yeah, I mean, if not, you're just going to be sitting there.
Yeah, you might as well stay home, like, which I don't recommend. So, but
so you're going to the mountains. We're doing a workaway.
Yeah, I did this really cool workaway with this company called Waste Warriors, and they deal with all the waste that's on this mountain in Dharamshala. They work in Bagzu and Dharamkot. And so they work with all the guest houses, the restaurants, and everything there. It's a pretty touristy place, like Bagzu and Dharamkot. Dharamshala is actually where the Dalai Lama lives, so there's a big Tibetan community there.
And did you know that these areas were more touristy when you were going into it, or is that something you found out once you got there?
I suppose.
Or did you seek out the touristy spots?
At the start, yes, because I didn't know what I was doing.
Exactly.
At the end, literally, I ran away from Goa. I stayed for a little bit, which is like the party sort of area in the south. Had I arrived, I probably would have and straight to Goa, I probably would have enjoyed it more. That's not to say there's anything wrong with it. Like, there's a lot going on there.
It's not what you're searching for.
But at that time, I literally ran away, and then I was in such random areas. But you do need to be careful in India. Like, especially alone, you can't just go absolutely anywhere that you want. It's not safe like that. You need to use your head, and there's certain states that are a bit more sketchy, or a bit more you're a bit more vulnerable in than others. And there's also because each state has its own culture and its own vibe. It's all India, but it's all different. Like, it's so old, it's like ancient, and there's hundreds of languages, and within that, hundreds of cultures. Like, so yeah, it's a fascinating place, but it all has its own thing. But yeah, I went straight to the mountains because my friend who I was with right before I went to India, he went to Dharamshala, and he told me, go there, like, it's mountains, you see the mist coming in, and honestly, it's a beautiful place. It is. I went on, that's where I fell in love with hiking, truly, and you could just go up the mountain.
Are the mountains there big, snowy peaks? Are they nice, fluffy with trees? Or give us a little bit of description with those mountains.
In Dharamshala, it's like fluffy greenery, but it's the Himalayas, So I ended up spending 3 months in the Himalayas, and I would highly recommend it. It is really my favorite place on earth that I've been to so far. And this part was green. I went further up, which ended up being my favorite place I've ever been to, Spiti Valley, and that's dry, arid desert mountains, and that completely changes. And I was there in October, and that is the last month that you can go in there for the year, because it becomes winter, and they get completely cut off from the rest of everywhere.
But people still live out there.
Oh yeah, people live there, but they, because it's on the border with Tibet. I ended up doing a really cool hike. I did a trek there and a hike there that went to the last village before Tibet on this one area, and we stayed in the monastery that night with the 19-year-old ashram keeper, and they look very quite like Tibetan, and they also we asked one of the men that we stayed with at his guest house, do you consider yourself like Indian or, and he's like, no, Spidian, you know, like I'm from Spiti Valley, like, because they have it's a completely different place. Like, of course they're still Indian and they can speak Hindi, I think, up there.
But they're so cut off from the rest that they do feel like their own.
Yeah, and it's so old.
Their own unit over there.
And like for them, they've got their own sort of economy going on there. Like, yes, they take in guests, but they're like farming for themselves. Like when I was there, you could tell winter was coming, you know?
They're
like,
working.
They're working hard. Like, because in winter, there's no work. Like, they're going to chill, that they're going to sit and they're going to wait until it's not winter anymore. And then they do the whole process again. Like, I guess how everybody did at one stage. You know?
Before we could start escaping winter, like a lot of us do.
Yeah. Or or before you have or capitalism decided you still had to go to work in heaps of snow, you know, like until like things became 24/7. Like that's how people were living. So I went there after maybe 2 months into India, and that changed my whole perspective of being there. And that really changed. From that moment onwards, I was in flow. I was the happiest I've ever been.
Wow.
And yeah, everything was just felt good. Even the shit things felt good. Like, I was able to get past them a bit more. Because I met this incredible woman on the bus, my beautiful friend Maria. And she'd been spending 5 years going in and out of India. She spoke Hindi.
Where was she from originally?
She's from England originally.
Okay.
And I was 24 at the time, and she was 52, I think. And we just met on the bus going towards Spiti Valley. And I was supposed to take the bus 2 days before, and then the day before. But I kept prolonging my stay in Manali, which is another beautiful mountain town. And then fate brought me and this woman together, you know, and I truly believe that. A lot of my closest friends that I've met traveling, I met on a bus or on a plane, just sitting next to me, you know, and to me that is it's fate.
It really is. And that's one great thing about not having strict time limitations while you're traveling. It allows you to spend 2 extra days somewhere.
Oh, absolutely.
And then so you do get on that bus where you do meet this best friend that turns your trip around.
Totally. Like,
and changes your life.
Yeah. And I just think, you know, of course, there's this idea of like free will. I don't know. It's contentious. Do we actually have it? Like, I really, truly believe I was always meant to be on that bus because meeting her and traveling with her and our other friend for 2 weeks in Spiti Valley, where we hitchhiked and trekked, it kind of changed my whole trip, and it therefore changed my life, you know. So
exactly.
But she really taught me. She was like, just all the inconveniences, and you know, if something happens, I just think it's funny. Like, and she's like, I just think Indian people and the culture here are just like, they are the friendliest people, and like, they're just so, like I said, everything's so stimulating, and like, they're just very gregarious, and they're just lovely people, and they want to make you feel welcome most of the time, and you can always make a mate in India, you know, and there's always something funny going on, and there's like, of course, there's a lot of shit that happens there, and that shouldn't be dismissed in any sort of way, but there's so much, I feel like that gets so much of the focus when people think of India. They think of,
it drowns out all the good stuff.
Yeah, like when I meet people, I tell them that I had an amazing time there. Even when I didn't have an amazing time, I still had an amazing time in the end, you know. So yeah, I think that it's really, it's beautiful to focus on the positives, and I feel really lucky.
Meet somebody like Maria who can remind you not to take life so seriously.
Absolutely.
And life is 50-50. It's not always, you know, smile and pure bliss. It also, no matter where you are in life, no matter what you're doing, it's always going to be 50-50. Hopefully bliss and some other things that aren't so enjoyable.
That's the thing. Yeah, we still talk, and I just really feel like, because India is a challenge, you know what I mean? Like, and if you're up for it, then you'll enjoy it. If you want to go sit on the beach and have the cocktail brought to you, by all means, go do that, you know? There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not how I like to travel, you know? And so once you get past the difficulties that India presents you with, like taking the bus, taking the train, just things that we like tend to take for granted
Exactly.
in the Western world, because it's just really they just make it really complicated for some reason. So it's a very rewarding feeling once you get there.
Yeah, I feel like it also, you get out of it what you put into it. So if you're willing to see how other people live and try to get more on their level instead of just taking the pina coladas by the beach.
Yeah.
Definitely opens up your doors to meeting other people and creating more of a connection with the country.
Absolutely. And like I said, Indian people are it's the most friendly country I've ever been to. You know?
What was your favorite cultural difference?
The food.
The food. Oh, of course, yes. You love to eat.
Yeah, I do. And I can't even think about the food without...
Let's not even think about it. We're in South America,
yeah,
where the food is más o menos.
I mean, yeah, I don't want to talk ill of my host, but it's nothing on India, for sure. Like,
I could imagine.
It's really... Go for the... Like... If you have no other reason to be there, go for the food, like,
yeah,
and then fall in love with the rest later. But go eat. India is so vast; it's just massive, and like you look at it on a map or something, and you're like, that's not that.
It doesn't look that big on a map because there's so much around it.
Huge.
I could imagine, yeah,
and especially because there's every part of it pretty much is inhabited.
Just filled with people, yeah.
Yeah, so like the roads, it just takes ages to do things, like to just drive places. And India has everything. It's got jungle, it's got desert, it's got high arid desert mountains, it's got the beach, it's got everything. So whatever you're looking for, you can find it, you know. I recommend to anyone that wants to long-term travel, definitely look into workaway or volunteering.
Exactly.
Because it makes, one, it's economical.
Very much so.
Two, you learn something usually. Sometimes they're not great. What can you do? You know, you never know until you're there. Waste Warriors are a great organization. They also had it in different parts of the country that weren't touristy. This part was touristy, but they had like a little branch. And this was in 2019 that I was there. And so I'm sure that it's expanded since then. But they handled all the trash on the mountain, and then we also once a week would go up to the hike that you can do there, and we would pick up all the rubbish that gets left on the side. I hate that. Fucking hate those tiny little lollies, like those individual lozenge packets. They're the bane of my existence. Yeah. When anyone ever hands me one, I'm like, absolutely not. Like, because I have to go and hand pick them off this fucking mountain weekly, you know, like they did it once a week and there was still rubbish on the mountain when you go up next time, you know, like.
Yeah, it is kind of more eye-opening when you see something that you typically use in nature, just trash sitting there. Like if you drink Coca-Colas or something and you see a Coca-Cola bottle, you're like, well, that could potentially be mine in another, you know, place of the world.
Exactly.
Know? So it really opens up your eyes more, especially when you're the one having to pick it up and put hours of work into that as well. I think that's something everybody should do.
Absolutely.
Well. So we all create trash.
Yeah. I mean,
we all should be picking it up too.
Exactly. For me, I love picking up rubbish, like, because it feels like one nice good deed for the earth. Like, there's nothing negative happening as I pick up the rubbish.
Right.
It's like anxiety reducing for me.
Exactly.
But yeah, so yeah, I would recommend doing Workaway if you're planning a long-term trip, because, and then you get to know people a bit better, and you get to know a place a bit better.
Exactly. Get more of a raw, authentic experience.
Yeah.
And very unique. I think all the workaways I've done and all the volunteers that I've found myself in, it just have been the most unique experiences that have always kind of stuck with me on a trip, rather than just going and getting the tour that everybody else does and staying at the hostel that everybody else does.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, for me, it was really, like, Dharamshala is a beautiful place. It's a beautiful area. And I felt so lucky that I got to spend 3 weeks. I was only there for 3 weeks, you know. But I just feel so grateful that I was able to really get to know the place rather than just pass through it. So, and that's the thing. You can go there. They did yoga retreats there and yoga teacher trainings there. They did everything there. So it's a big meditation hub, obviously, because the Tibetans are all there. The Dalai Lama. So I actually saw the Dalai Lama do a teaching there.
cool.
which was interesting. I didn't know what he was saying. They translate it, but I still have no idea what he was saying.
Hard to keep up.
Fucking A. Like, but it was cool. Like I think I said earlier, like India, it felt like India tried to kill me when I first got there.
Yeah, so I want to hear more about that part of the story.
Like I would say like 2 weeks into the trip, or maybe 3 weeks into the trip, maybe 3. So I stayed in like an apartment, sort of like a small apartment, with my workaway.
Yeah.
I shared a room with another woman, and I did yoga at like 10 in the morning, I think. It was like around the corner from where I was staying.
Yeah.
This is like a touristy area. So during my yoga, I was like, because I was still settling in. I was feeling a bit uncomfortable. Not uncomfortable, but just a bit uneasy, you know? Like I was still getting my bearings. And I was in my yoga, and my intention was I want to be open, you know? I want to be open to experiences.
Open and ready to receive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And so I head back to my apartment building, and there's like this monk sitting there in like the stairwell of where I was living, and we start chatting, and he's like, oh, I'm thinking of moving here, like do you stay here? I was like, yeah, I stay here. And bear in mind, this is the middle of the day, this is like 11 a.m. And he's like, oh, do you mind if I just like quickly see your room? Like I was waiting for the landlord, but like I just want to have a look at the room to see if I can stay here. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. Like it's the middle of the day, I've just gone into yoga being like, I want to be open.
Exactly.
And also he's dressed like a monk, or he's a monk, you know? So
so you're kind of in this trusting
so I'm like, yeah,
sense and mentality.
exactly. So I'm like, okay, like he can have a look at my room, like whatever. But we go into the room, and then I expect him obviously not to enter, or to enter and do nothing. But I see all my clothes are on my bed, so I just quickly remove them. And he comes into the room, and he swings the door shut. And I'm like, oh, fuck, you know, like, that's not good.
Bad sign.
Yeah. And I was already, like, on the other side of the room on my bed, like, just sitting down on my bed. And he's looking around all weird, and he, like, goes to the bathroom to look in it, and then he comes and sits on the bed opposite mine, because there was 2 beds, like, opposite each other.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay,
how big is this
out.
guy?
Not too big. A bit bigger than me, not that much. Which I'm very thankful for, to be honest. Yeah, so he's sitting opposite me, and I'm like, I need to get him out of my room. Like, this is bad, you know? Like, I already was like...
Was this a panic moment, or was this kind of more like a deep knowing... I need to get, like, kind of more of a calmer sense of I need to get him out of my room right now? Or was it more panic feeling?
It was a bit of a panic, but I had to remain calm, you know? Like, I can't allow him to see that I'm sus on him, or that I'm stressed about what's happening. But as soon as that, I was already like, this is kind of strange, but, you know, we're in India, like, blah, blah, blah. And then, yeah, as soon as he swung that door shut, I was like, oh my fucking God, like, what's about to happen, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm like, hey, like, I need to take a shower, so I need you to leave. And he was like, take a shower. Go ahead. Like, and as it gesturing for me to just go take, and he'll wait for me, sort of thing. And I was like, no, like, I need you to leave, you know? Like, I'm sorry, like, but you need to go. And he's like, yeah, okay. And so he stood up, and so I stood up with him, or I think I stayed seated, but he goes to shake my hand, so I shake begrudgingly. I'm like, okay, I'll shake this man's hand, and then he'll leave. I shake his hand, and then he forces all of his weight onto me, onto the bed, like he's literally trying to pin me down, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And so it was just, everything happened so fast, you know? But luckily, he wasn't that big. And I pushed the cunt off me. We're struggling a bit. I push him off me. He falls down, like, on the end of my bed. Like, my bag was on the end of it, and he, like, fell over it, like, onto the floor. And he had a rainbow umbrella, and that was sitting on the bed that he was sitting on before. Yeah. So this is all happening fast, you know? So I pick up his umbrella, and I fucking hold it over him. And in my head, I'm like, oh, and then I run and I open the door at some point, you know? Like, it's all happening fast.
Super fast, yeah.
And I'm holding the umbrella over him, and I'm like, can I swear at a monk? This is in my head. I'm like, can I swear at a monk? And I was like, fuck this guy. He's just attacked me,
respect out the window.
I know, and I was like, get the fuck out of here, you creepy fucking monk. And he's like, he's on the floor looking like a little pathetic little worm. He's like scared, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm holding the umbrella over him, and then he stands up, and I'm like ready to, I've got it in my arms like a baseball bat. And he's like, but my umbrella. And I'm like, I'll give you your fucking umbrella when you leave. Like the audacity.
Yeah.
He wants my weapon, you know, but he wants his umbrella. And so he runs out. I get the door, I throw him his umbrella on the floor, and then I close it and I lock it, you know?
Yeah.
And then I just sit and I just have a minute to just sort of realize what's just happened.
Yeah,
you know?
to process it all.
I contact my workaway people, and they were really nice about it. And then my friend messages me. This is actually a really crazy story. I just didn't know who to contact, you know what I mean? And I was just like, I just think you should know that, like, someone just attacked me in the apartment building.
Yeah,
where I'm staying with you guys.
Supposedly, potentially dressed up as a monk or monk, if he isn't actually one.
I mean, I don't know any monks that behave like that.
I don't either. Yeah, if not, he needs to do a little bit better.
Yeah. But that's the thing, like, I've heard of this sort of happening before in India, like people dressing up as...
that's really good to know.
It's very important.
Especially hanging around, like, yoga studio, yoga classes, so they're there to take advantage of somebody being in kind of like an open mindset like you.
Absolutely. I'd heard of this happening a lot in India, but not with monks necessarily, like people dressed as monks. It was more people dressed as I'm trying to remember the name, but sadhus.
How do they dress?
It's a similar sort of vibe to a monk, but like it's a mystical sort of shaman-y, but it's like a shaman, but for orange is usually the color, or white. But it's like the shaman of India sort of thing, to put it layman's terms. Whatever. But just to say it in like a comparison to here. And I'd heard of that happening quite a bit, but I'd never heard of like that happening with a monk.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is, well, there's a lot of crazy things that happened, but my friend is calling me. I didn't have many friends here. You know, I had my own little group.
Is this Maria calling you?
No, this is a different...
This is before Maria.
Yeah, this is before I met Maria. So I have a friend who I was hanging out with at the time. We had our little group. There was like 3 or 4 of us that would hang out. And she's calling me, and I'm like, I just need a minute. And I just text her. I'm like, hey, I can't talk right now. Like, a monk just attacked me. And she goes, call me right now. A monk attacked me as well.
Wow.
So I call her, and she tells me 15 minutes before I met him, he was on like the main path that goes up the mountain.
Yeah.
And he grabbed her as well.
Same guy.
Same guy.
Wow.
Rainbow fucking umbrella. And he goes to shake her hand on the street, and you know, you're very, like, in this area, it's all very friendly, all of these things. And she shakes his hand, and he grabs her as well, and she pushes him off, and then he runs around the corner to where I live. And then, so she was Israeli, and in this area there's a big Israeli community, and so they have like an Israeli Facebook page or something where they just like do little communal posts or whatever,
hang out and stuff like that.
Yeah, whatever. So she posts on there things like this. She goes, hey, like, I was just attacked. Me and my friend were both just attacked by a monk. Like, women, please watch out. Like, there's a fucking crazy monk on the loose. She gets a message from 5 or 6 different women saying the exact same thing happened to them as well. So this cunt is just walking around, just randomly attacking any woman that he sees. And so I went to the police with the help of my workaway. My workaway, I was like, something really interesting that, like, when I thought it was just me, I was like, oh, I wouldn't bother. But when I knew that other women, it had also happened to them, I was like, fuck this. You know?
This needs to be stopped.
So I went to the police, and I described it in as much detail. Anyway, so one of them comes with me and Vicky, one of the guys that actually work for the company. And so we go and look at all of the footage around the place to see if we can, like, get a photo of this guy.
Yeah.
But he looks like a monk, and like all of the monks dress the exact same. They all have a shaved head, and he looks like a Tibetan sort of monk. I can't even tell you how many people there are that look like this there.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I couldn't even imagine.
The only difference is the shoes and this fucking umbrella.
Yeah.
And so we go and we look at like the corner store camera, and I say that's him because he had the umbrella.
Yeah.
And then we go and we look at the house that was kind of like in front of mine, and we're like, do you have cameras? And they're like, yeah. So we go inside and we look at the cameras, and then we see 5 minutes after he leaves me, he goes, you see her exit the camera view, she goes around the corner, the woman that owns the house, and then you see him enter, and she's like, oh my god, and I'm like, that's him, you know. And then he enters her house. She had no idea this had happened. He enters her house, and she's like, quickly, like she changes it to the video that was inside of the house. She's got a camera that's in there, so they quickly change it to that. And you see him just enter her house and just go up the stairs of her house where she doesn't have any cameras. That's her bedroom. And then you just see him come back down 5 minutes later and then just leave. She had no idea that he was in there.
I wonder what he did. Did he
probably stole some shit?
Stole some things, yeah.
So the community there, it is very touristy there. It's a beautiful place, but yeah, it is very touristy.
Yeah. And there's a balance between touristy and then also people knowing that and coming to take advantage of tourists.
That's the thing. There's that, and then there's also the fact that if people feel unsafe there, they're not going to come back. So yes, the police took the number and they took the information, but the town was hellbent on finding this man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were like, we need to get him out of here. And I honestly believe, I don't know what happened.
Wow, that's a really good feeling, though.
It is a good feeling. Like, it is coming from a place of like, we need the tourists here. Like, but it was like, we can't have this fucking lunatic running around attacking random women and stealing shit from people's houses because it's not safe, you know? And so I stayed for 1 more week, which I was actually really glad about. So pretty much at this point, I had 2 options. Go somewhere else or home, or staunch the fuck up, you know, become resilient. And you know, it would have been completely fair enough and valid if I decided to leave in that moment. And I was like, but I just arrived and I want to see this through. Like, I'm not going to fucking let some man who randomly decided I was the target for that minute decide whether I stay here or not, you know? So yeah, that happened.
So is that what kept you traveling after, you know, being assaulted, just kind of wanting to continue your journey that you set out on this country and not like let it end on such a bad note?
Totally. Like, I think it would, like I said,
it's part of the challenge, you know?
Absolutely. Like, unfortunately, there's men exist in this world who want to harm you, you know, like, and that's not the first place that I was assaulted, and it's not the last place either, unfortunately, but I refuse to allow myself to be dictated by the patriarchy, and to men's fucking disgusting decisions to
stop you from seeing the world.
Exactly. For me, that's not good enough, you know? Like, in some places, I am putting my life at risk, you know? But you fucking put your life at risk when you leave the house. And so I would rather take that chance and grow from it as well, because I have grown so much from these experiences, shit ones and amazing ones, because traveling is intense. It's kind of either shit or amazing. It's very rarely mundane or in the middle, you know, like
and I feel like that's when you can really like feel like you're actually living, you know? Because if it's just neutral all the time,
I can't live.
There's
neutral.
No growth.
That's the thing with traveling, has given me so much, and it's also given me this whole like, every time I leave Australia, it's difficult to go back, and every time I do come back, I feel slightly less like I belong there, you know? And that is one thing that's like difficult about traveling, and like the people do talk about, but it's hard to explain if you've not experienced it. The more you leave, the more experience you have, the more you grow, and the more it's not quite in tune with where you're from.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Have you ever felt anywhere where you said, this is my home? Or are you still, is that one of your reasons to travel, is to keep searching for a home?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Like I said, Vietnam was home for 1.5 years. which was nice, but insane at the same time. Vietnam is a whole other thing, really. I am searching for a place to call home, but I'm also resolute in the fact that I don't think I can sit anywhere for too long, you know, like, and I'm okay with that. For me, I seem to have a kind of year cap on things. I haven't had the same job for more than a year in 7 years, and I'm changing constantly, because for me, I enjoy that. I know a lot of people would think, fuck that, like, I crave stability and I crave routine, but I just kind of don't. Sometimes I do enjoy routine. That's why I enjoy workaways, because it gives you
mini
routine.
Mini stability out there.
Absolutely.
That is a great way to look at it.
Little home for a month, and then you fuck off to the next adventure.
Okay, so this is kind of jumping out of place, but I did want to ask you something. Whenever you met the monk with the rainbow umbrella and he asked to see your room, did you have that instant feeling of, I shouldn't do this, or anything of your intuition telling you, like, hey, maybe not?
I think, yeah, it's interesting.
Because for me, that's ingrained in me. When somebody asks me something, and, you know, maybe this is good, maybe this is bad, but I'm always like, where are the bad intentions here?
I think it's good to not get too lost in that, because you do miss out on things.
On opportunities.
But I think it is incredibly important to
be able
also
to
be aware that some people do want to harm you. A part of me 100% was like,
of course,
that seems weird. But then the other part of me that was like, you're being too closed off, you know, like, this is why sometimes it's hard to meet people, like, is because you're not open enough with people, you know, like, this part of me was like, no, like, this is the universe in a way being like, go, be open, like, but alas, no. I think, like I said, from that point onwards, it was like, in Australia we say staunch. I don't know if we say that anywhere else, but
I never heard that besides from you.
Staunch is
I just feel like bulking up and like
absolutely
bulking up.
That is staunch is like when you're tough, you know, like you're a tough cunt, and you are fucking like
ready to handle anything that's
absolutely.
And maybe that is what you were meant to receive, was a challenge to tell yourself that, I can't handle India right now. I just fought off this seemingly monk that just assaulted me.
Well, that's
I'm ready to handle anything.
I feel so immensely grateful that that's what happened, and it wasn't anything more,
worse.
Because if he'd just been a bigger man that I wasn't able to get
or if
off
he had
me,
more of a weapon on him, or something.
Like if there's so many situations where that ends in me being much more harmed, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of just like a little wake-up call, maybe, of hey, keep yourself on your guard.
Yeah. Especially if you're going to be here, you know? Like, and because... So, there's two things I want to say about that. Like, the first is, like... So 2 days later, I had to go pick up rubbish for my workaway, and I was not feeling well. Like, I was feeling very anxious, like
because of the experience.
Yeah, because like
no,
it
that's
had
traumatic.
sort of
very traumatic.
Yeah, like it had sort of like the next day I felt okay. I was hanging out with my friend who was also grabbed by this man, and we sort of bonded over this a little bit, and I felt, I don't know, like a few things happened and I was okay. But 2 days later, it was sort of sitting in my brain a bit, and I think my body had caught up a little bit to what had happened, and I was feeling awful. And I was walking to where I was supposed to work that day, and I'm walking down these stairs, and a man approaches me, and he's talking to me, and I'm like flustered, and he goes to shake my hand, and I'm like, oh fuck again, and I shake the man's hand, and he tries to bring me in, and I, not aggressively, but he grabs my hand, you know, like he wants a hug or some shit, and I had a panic attack on the spot, on this step, and he freaked out, like, because he was like, whoa, and he just ran away. I just broke out into tears and was just I think I said no or something, you know. I was just like, what is happening again, you know, like, and I just fully had a panic attack on this step. And in that moment, that was really the universe being like, are you going to shake cunt's hands or not? You know, like, did you learn or did you not learn? And so from that moment onwards, because people are so, I need to, reiterate, like, so that happened in the first 2-3 weeks, right? I stayed for 6 months.
Yeah.
I fucking loved it there. And for every creep on whatever bus or wherever the fuck you are, for one creep, there's 20 or 30 friendly people that want to help you.
Exactly.
And they will help you if you ask for it. Like I said before, it's the friendliest place I've ever been. You don't know what's going to happen. Like, you could miss a bus and then there's a creep on that bus that you missed out on, or you get the next one and you just don't know. Like,
exactly.
But the thing is, people will try to take advantage of you in India, and you need to be fucking ready for that. And I know this guy. He paid like $1,000 for train tickets and hostels.
Oh my
for
God.
Like 3 weeks or something, or 4 weeks. It does not cost that much. Like, he fully got scammed, and he asked me, and I was like, yeah. So you are a target sometimes.
No matter who you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
and so you need to be careful, and like, you don't let people take advantage of you. When you go in asking for a bus ticket, you buy one bus ticket. You don't buy all the other things that come with it, you know? And so when men, after this point, because everything is, what is your good name, my friend? Everything is, my friend. It's always, what is your good name, which I love.
That's so funny.
But men, I have real specific memories of men trying to shake my hand after that, and me, if I didn't know them, saying no, and them kind of taking offense.
I could
but
imagine.
I just don't care, because my safety is so much more important than them being offended. I'm saying, like, if I don't know the person and they approach me on the street.
Yeah, just a random person.
Not just being a dick to anyone.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because I don't really like it. I love the kiss on the cheek here. I love that about South American culture. And but yeah, sometimes some random men on the bus will just try to do it to me. And
Yeah,
I'm
it's
like,
just not gonna happen.
Like, I'm good without that. And it is hard to find the balance between keeping yourself safe and trying not to come off as rude, you know? Because a handshake is so normal. But yeah, it's like, it's such a great way for you to just give away your power.
Exactly.
And let somebody take advantage of you.
And like
I had never even thought about it.
Yeah. And so, from that, I just think about all of the, mainly women, obviously people as well, but all of the women or the femme presenting people in the world who have been literally murdered, let alone raped, or assaulted, robbed, all of the other things, just because they were being polite.
Yeah.
They didn't listen to their instinct, or they just thought, no, I should be polite. I don't want to be rude. Because we're so taught to be people pleasers. We're so taught, just society in general, and then women especially, you can't be rude. Rude is the worst possible thing you could be. You know what would be fucking worse? Being murdered on the spot by this creep, you know? Like, so from that point onward, I was like, I will be rude if it means that I'm safe.
Exactly.
Because my safety, my feeling of being safe is the most important thing. And there's times after that where I didn't feel safe, you know? And that you have to, when you're alone, you're fucking alone, you know? And you have to really, you can lean on people, you can ask people. In a lot of the train stations in India, they have women-only sections, which take advantage of that. Go and sit there. Like,
that's amazing.
Yeah, they've got like they've usually got a plug somewhere. Yeah. And like, go and sit in that. Like, take advantage of these things. But yeah, sometimes you might be alone and you might be scared, but you cannot look it. You need to look fucking tough.
Stonked or whatever you
Staunch,
say.
bro.
Staunch.
Yeah. You need to be staunch and look it. Even if you don't feel it, never ever walk with your head down.
And that's what I think about. If I ever have like an injury and I'm like, my ankle hurts and I'm like, I want to be limping. No, you can't be limping either, because I feel like that's just like a target as well. Like I don't want to like anybody to look like I'm slow.
Yeah,
you know, I'm an easy target. That's like one of the main challenges of traveling alone, is realizing I am alone and I'm the only person that can, in the end of the day, help me do what I want to do. And I have trouble when I go back home, or maybe I'm like traveling with and something happens and shit hits the fan and I go into like action mode, because I'm used to just like, when shit hits the fan, I'm alone, I have to take care of it.
I know what you mean. Like, it can be really difficult to go back into this community setting, but I think it is important to just keep the connection lines open a little bit, because it can be very alienating being out here alone.
Yeah. But I do think it is important to have that support system back at home that's like a phone call away if shit hits the fan. And I've definitely taken advantage of that, and it's something that is helping me also work through while traveling, is that I'm so indecisive, and being alone and having to decide my shit without calling my best friend and saying, hey, like, I kind of want to eat this for dinner, but like also I want to do that. Like, literally I'll ask shit like that. So it's nice to also, like, when they don't answer the phone and I'm like,
yeah, I don't know. It's been a massive growth experience that I'm continuing on for me, and it's not for everyone. I would recommend to everyone to do at least
once.
like a month or something.
Yeah.
Somewhere chill as well, if you're not up for it. Like, just to see what it's like to be on your own. Yeah.
For sure.
Or even, you don't even need to go anywhere, but just go sit in a cabin alone for the weekend.
Yeah.
And don't call your friends, you know, just be alone for a little bit, because we're so scared of that, like, because we're not used to it. And I feel so grateful for social media, because we can, like, I can stay connected with people, but then also at the same time I'm like constantly in contact with people. We're not meant to be, like, we're not meant to, like, constantly be at the tip of our fingers, like reachable.
Yeah, it's kind of a new concept too, because, you know, back in the day, it's like once you left your home and you left your home phone, nobody could contact you for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
But now it's like we are literally reachable 24/7.
Yeah. And, like, I have to message people when I'm going off somewhere where there's no service, like, just so they don't worry, you know.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like, I'm still trying to learn how to listen to my intuition, but it's once you start fine tuning that, it's a massive tool. It's a massive, powerful tool, and so I think that's kind of the thing that you should always go back to and base who you're putting your trust in, is what is your intuition telling you. And sometimes that fucks up, you know. You can't always know what's going, like, it's not just this some deep reader and knows everything, but it is actually incredibly powerful.
It is. It's hard to tap into, especially when you aren't listening to it all the time, and then you're kind of cut off from it. When you listen to it in your everyday decisions, I feel like is when it gets stronger in the decisions that you really need. So yeah, that's one of the hardest things about traveling and just experiencing life in general, is just distinguishing fear and anxiety from your intuition. A lot of people think or I've listened to some things where intuition is kind of more of a calm knowing that you shouldn't do something, and fear and anxiety is more of like a fast-paced panic feeling. And that's why I was asking you that earlier, because it's more of the intuition is kind of like a calm knowing that just kind of splashes over you, while fear and anxiety is kind of your hands getting really sweaty right before you're about to go do some performance on stage, or and your body just telling you, no, I shouldn't do this, I'm gonna fuck it up, something bad's gonna happen. That's more of your anxiety and your fear talking to you.
Totally. I think that's a really good way of putting it. Like, for me, I'm still trying to distinguish this. Like, it's something, like, I do have anxiety. I've been dealing with anxiety my whole life, and so it is really hard to distinguish, and I'm trying to, I think with intuition and listening to your instincts, it's something that you have to practice. You really have to be trying to do that with, like, every day, like, tuning into it and, like, fine-tuning that ability. It takes time and practice, and like I said, I'm really still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, me too. And so what would be your number one advice to a solo woman traveling in India?
Like I said, staunch up.
Staunch it up.
Yeah, man. Be brave. Be intuitive, and listen to yourself, and don't give people the power to take advantage of you. Of course, I'm not victim blaming when saying that. Shit happens everywhere, and I want to reiterate, literally everywhere. Yeah. There is not one country on this earth where I have felt completely safe. But yeah, I would say be smart. You know, if you don't have to take the night bus, don't take the night bus. Like, it is smarter to travel in the daytime. But you can be alone there, and people will help you. Lean into the fact that people are really friendly there. Don't suffer in silence. If you feel unsafe, if your body is telling you something's happening, be aware. Like, constantly be aware. Like, you cannot let your guard, whilst you're on the move and whilst you're walking around, you cannot put your guard down. Like, unfortunately, you do have to always have your radar up. But in saying that, I had the best time, and I would implore anyone that feels ready to take it on, because it's a challenge for sure. But if you feel ready to do that, then I would encourage you to do so. And yeah, look around and take it in.
Yeah. I like to think about this whenever I'm experiencing anything, that I'm only going to have this exact moment this once, like right now. Like, we're only going to eat these donuts this way, at this place, in this setting, this time.
Yeah.
You know, like, we might eat donuts again, but it won't be in this exact setting, in this exact moment. So that just makes me cherish the present moment a whole lot more when I think about, like, I'm never going to experience this sunset, I'm never going to experience this again.
Totally.
Even though I'm going to see a sunset more times, I don't know.
Totally. No, it's a good way to be. And I think traveling really heightens that ability.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for all the words and all your stories and sharing your journey through India. One last question. Where in this beautiful world are you after South America trip?
Oh, see, I was going to say Peru because I'm heading in that direction.
Okay, well, you're heading to Peru next.
I'm heading to Peru next.
Okay.
In terms of the world, to be honest with you, I don't know, and I fucking love not knowing.
Well, I'm excited to see where you go and hear more your stories in a later episode.
Ooh, when we meet up somewhere else in the world.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you everybody
pleasure.
for tuning in to the episode today. I hope you all are having a lovely day, and we will catch you next time. I think that's good.
Wow.